You've come again." Campbell groaned. "Must it be so bloody difficult to root out corruption and illegal deeds?" he muttered to MacColl. "Must the most beautiful lass in all of Scotland be the most unruly and untamed of them all?" Apparently Mr. MacColl had no answer to that, and in fact he turned his head so that Duncan could not see his face. Duncan rolled his eyes and addressed the woman who lived like an undomesticated cat on this island. "Hold your fire, aye, Miss Livingstone. I am your laird, after all." As if that needed explaining. "How can we help you, laird?" she asked. "No, you, lass. I'll have a word with your father." Her eyes sparked, and above another glittering smile, she said, "Oh, but he'll be delighted. He will." The lass had a way of giggling sometimes when she spoke that made Duncan wonder if she was laughing at him or was just a wee bit off her head. He called in his men and motioned for them to follow along as he and MacColl trudged up the hill toward the Livingstone manor. If they couldn't find the stills and Livingstone would not own to them, then, by God, Campbell would inquire about the past due rents. He'd have something for his trouble. Chapter 2. 2 weeks later. The North Sea. The wind out of the west was light, but brought with it heavy clouds. Nevertheless, the Raylag Balhair was sailing along just as she ought to be, the sedative dip and rise of the ship's bow into the rolling waves, a steady reminder that all was right. Captain Aulay Mackenzie listened to the sound of his crew calling out to each other as they manned the sails. He closed his eyes and felt the mist of the sea on his face, the wind ruffling the queue of his hair. It was days like this, well, he preferred those glorious sun-filled days at sea, when he felt most himself, when he was most at home. He was in command of his ship, of his spirit, of his world. It was, perhaps, the only place in his life that was so. It had been too long since he'd been at sea, a few months, but to him a lifetime. Aulay chafed at life at his family's home of Balhair. He had lived his entire adult life at sea, and every day away from his ship was a day something was missing. He was useless at Balhair. His father was chief of the Mackenzie clan. His older brother, Caline, was his father's agent, his face to the world. Rabbie, Aulay's younger brother, managed the day-to-day business of the sprawling estate of Balhair, along with his youngest sister, Catriona. His mother was engaged in the social aspects, as was his sister, Vivienne. And Aulay? He had no useful purpose there. Nothing worthwhile to occupy his days. He was merely an observer on land. His father had begun the Mackenzie sea trade when he was a young man, and it had flourished under his clever eye, and as his sons grew, with them as well. Their trade had suffered in the wake of the Battle of Culloden some 7 years ago. After the brutal defeat of the Jacobite uprising, the Highlands had been decimated first by English forces and then by economics. The new economy was moving the Highlands from small croft farms to wide-ranging sheep herding. Great numbers of Highlanders, having lost their livelihood, were leaving for greener fields in Glasgow and beyond. The Mackenzies of Balhair had not been involved in the conflict, but nonetheless they'd lost half their clan to it, had seen their livestock and a second ship seized by the Crown. Still, they'd hung on to this ship, and with it, a dwindling trade. With the last round of repairs, his father had wanted to end their trade business altogether. "It's no use," he'd said. "It costs more to sail than we bring, aye? We've lost ground to the MacDonalds, we have." Aulay had panicked slightly at such talk. He didn't know who he was without a ship. He didn't know what he'd do. But then a miracle had happened. Aulay, chafing at the loss of some trade, had gone in search of more. He'd struck an agreement with William Tremaine of Port Glasgow. William was an Englishman, but he was an agent with goods to trade and in need of a vessel to carry them. Aulay was a captain with an empty ship. It seemed a perfect match. And yet his father and brothers had argued against the deal. It was too much risk, they said, to carry another man's cargo. Aulay had assured them there was no risk. Was he not a fine captain? Had he not delivered and brought home countless holds full of goods? He had prevailed in the end.